Create your pathway. Hey friends, welcome back to Create Your Pathway. I'm Rory, your host, and I interview real people working real jobs so you can know what they're really like. Today I'm talking to Jonathan Poland for the architecture and construction field. Now obviously architecture and construction is the designing and building of all kinds of structures, from like small houses on up to massive skyscrapers. Today you're going to hear about what it's like to work in the commercial roofing portion of the industry. So in other words, building businesses and not homes, and in particular focusing on building the roofs. Something that's really satisfying about construction and architecture is you get to see a very specific finished product. If you like to design things, build things, imagine new kinds of buildings, this is definitely the industry you should think about. Let's turn now to my conversation with Jonathan. Jonathan, thanks so much for being here with me this morning.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, tell me, if you have a title, tell me your title and what you do for work.
Graham Roofing. We do commercial roofing. Started as the branch manager of our Saltillo office. Now I'm actually one of the owners. We have two offices, one in West Point, Mississippi, and Saltillo, and now I'm one of the owners. I bought in back in 2018.
And just quickly, in case students are not clear in the distinction, an owner is somebody that actually has shares in the profits of a company and also majorly in the decision making, right? Which is different than just being an employee.
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah. So how did you get into the work of roofing?
It was kind of just a chance call. I've always been in construction growing up with my dad, just doing odd jobs in church, volunteer work, stuff like that. My Eagle Scout project was a construction project. I built a bridge, framing houses, residential houses in the summers during college. When I got out of college, I went into commercial construction, a paint and sheetrock company, estimating and project managing. Did that for about 6 years. And then I had a phone call from Mr. Benny here at Graham Roofing and had seen my resume on Indeed and asked me if I wanted to come basically do the same thing. But I would be that was the plan, to be the branch manager here at Saltillo for Graham Roofing. And so I took that offer.
So I think when a lot of people think about working in construction, what we think of is the people actually building stuff, right? But obviously when you've got a company that does that, you've got a lot of other kinds of competencies that you need to run the offices, to schedule things, to handle the finance and stuff like that. How did you make the transition from working on the houses or the the buildings to actually working on the company?
Working the summers, working on the houses, doing the labor, basically, learning a skill, learning a trade. But then when I came into the commercial construction side, and I went to college, I got a degree in business management, kind of as a fallback after I talked to a friend of mine who was obviously had been doing it his whole life and going into business with his dad, who owned a residential construction. He was a contractor. Okay. I said, well, why are you going to college? You know what you're doing. He said, well, just in case, because, construction can be up and down.
Sure.
So I went, got my degree. I didn't do the construction degree, but I knew that's what I wanted to do. So then when I got out and I was working kind of an odd job, just my roommate in college, his dad owned the business. And then another friend had called me and said, we have this job estimating and project managing for a commercial paint and sheetrock company. I was like, yes, let's do it.
Yeah.
So that kind of, the project managing, the estimating, started doing paperwork and scheduling and going and looking at the jobs and not doing all the labor work.
Right.
I still did some labor work because, like I said, you have to start somewhere. And I had done painting, hanging sheetrock before, but not to that degree. So I had to go out and actually see it done and do the work. And then when I came to Graham Roofing, and that was the plan. And that was way more because I had a office manager. I had a boss where I used to work. And then when I came over here, I was basically training to be the boss. So I had to take more into hiring employees, a lot more scheduling, a lot more meetings. You have more responsibilities, and I try to get out as often as I can, and we'll probably talk about that later. Still get out in the field, but yeah, it's a lot more office work, I guess you could say. Then the owner of the company was looking to retire, so he looked to us from within, me and two others, Christy and Suzanne, at our West Point office, and asked us, "Hey, would y'all like to buy into the company?" And I was like, "Oh, sure," So that, of course, led to, I still do the same basically day-to-day stuff. There's just more on my back, I guess you could say. There's more decision-making for the whole company as opposed to just my office here in Saltillo.
So I know construction is one of those things that anybody can get into. You don't need a college degree to get into it. You basically get trained and apprenticed, and you can have a really good career in it. What difference does it make for you having the college degree that you have, if it's made a difference?
I think it has, because I think it did get me in the door. The guy that actually got me the job, my first job in commercial construction, I knew growing up. To me, there's always kind of that in you need, like if you know somebody, and not necessarily all the time, but that piece of paper, yes, I think did. I also have my Eagle Scout. You can see it on the wall here. And my first boss out of college was an Eagle Scout also. So he saw that and, was like, oh, well, for the most part, it's a good thing to have, I guess, trustworthy, all that stuff. So anyway, the college degree, like I said, I didn't have to have it, but it was, again, one of those just in case, and I didn't necessarily want to be the laborer my whole life. Yeah. And back then, 10, 12, almost 15 years ago, it was ingrained in our heads that you had to go to college.
Right.
And you had to get that degree. In this business, you don't have to have it. I don't think you have to have it. Even to be the owner, Mr. Graham, who started Graham Roofing, I don't even know if he finished. That's where they met. There was 3 partners. They met at Mississippi State, and I don't think any of them finished. And they did very well for themselves. Yeah. And they did the work. They started in the summers roofing houses as, one little crew. And they moved up, and it's been around for 50 years. Yeah. But we promote from within, guys that move up from labor to the roofers to the foreman, and, even move in, to a general superintendent job. Our general superintendent at our West Point office has been around for almost 50 years. He helped start the company.
You mentioned trustworthiness earlier when you were talking about, like, they saw that you were an Eagle Scout, and the guy thought, I feel like Eagle Scouts are trustworthy. That's an example of like a virtue or a competency that you have to have probably if you want to get promoted in a company like Graham Roofing or in construction companies generally. What are some other of those character traits that you need to have? Like, you're in a position where you hire people, you promote people, like now at this point. What are some things that you look for in employees that make you think this person has a good long future at this company?
Start with just showing up, then just try. We had a superintendent here a few years ago that would tell all these new employees, and he was out in the field more with them. And so he could kind of watch them and do all that. But he said, just be like a sponge, soak everything up that you possibly can. Listen to these guys that have been here we've got guys that have been here for almost 20 years at this office and 40 plus years at our West Point office. But when you're working around these guys, and I've heard this my whole life, like I said, I've learned everything, most of the stuff I know from my dad. Yeah. Then to the guys I worked for, framing houses and all that. But soak it up, listen. They know what they're talking about most of the time. Don't just go out there thinking you know everything, because you don't. Yeah. Show up every day. Try hard. Just like I said, soak it up and then try to do those things. Don't just sit there and wait for somebody to tell you what to do or say, hey, go do this. Be a go-getter. I go out back in our warehouse in the mornings and I see one of the new guys sweeping the shop. Nobody wants to sweep the shop. So you go back there and this guy, it's early in the morning and other guys are kind of just milling around, sitting around. And this new guy that we hired a couple of days ago is sweeping the shop. I'm like, if he keeps this up, there'll be a raise in his near future. Not just money, but that gets respect.
Yeah, sure.
And when you get respect from the older guys, especially in the field, that's a big thing.
What are some of the things that you especially like about working in your field?
I get to see a lot of Tupelo, a lot of the surrounding area that I've never seen before because you're on the roof. I got lots of pictures on my phone of like the skyline view, we're doing the Bancorp South expansion right now. And so I get up on the tip top up there and I'll take pictures of like the City Hall and Tupelo Hardware and the banks over there and all that stuff. And you just get a bird's eye view of the cities and we go all over Oxford, Starkville, up to Corinth, stuff like that. So you get to see new cities, new towns. There's been a lot of counties and towns that I had no clue where any of these places were until I started working in construction. When it's hot, it's hot. When it's cold. But in Mississippi, you get a little bit of nice weather to just be out and enjoying, God's creation and just seeing new stuff every day, basically, new people and new stuff.
I imagine it's pretty cool to be able to like see a project from beginning to finish and see the finished project and like we're done. We did that. It's there now.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. Well, Jonathan, thank you so much. This has been really helpful. I think we've gotten a good picture of what it's like to do the work that you do and appreciate your time.
Thank you.